The violence that we are seeing is from our education being stripped, is from Medicaid being cut. It is from watching our immigrant families being torn apart. Violence against a building is not violence. We are seeing systematic violence against not just our immigrant neighbors and family, but Americans as a whole.
Today, the police chief and the mayor held a press conference kind of talking about how they want just everything to be peaceful. They're approaching it like it's going to be a peaceful event. They just are going to be prepared in case. What did you think about what they had to say today?
It was laughable in my opinion, because if you've been to any of our previous protests, I think we've held about 6 or 7 of them now just this year alone. They have all been peaceful. We have had protests without incident every single time. And while Hands Off and 50501 did not organize the protests that we saw the violence incur in, so what we heard from APD is that graffiti is what began the whole violent protest. And in my head, I'm like, okay, if it's graffiti that they are calling violent and that is why they began arresting people, then it really sounds like APD could use some lessons in de-escalation. Because to let violence occur because of something that can be easily washed off, if they're talking about wanting to keep things peaceful, I would say APD did not keep things peaceful at all June 9th.
Okay. So how do you feel going into Saturday?
I feel really good. We have been putting a lot of planning into this. We've been doing ourselves a lot of de-escalation training. We will have Austin medics on site. We will also have ASL interpreters, which we've had at every single event so that it is inclusive. This is a celebratory protest. We are celebrating our right to freedom of speech and our right to protest. These are constitutionally protected rights that we are so thankful to still have. And we want to remind people not to take them for granted. And that, yes, we have them now and we celebrate them now, but it's going to come with work to keep them. And we have never had any violence in our protest. And again, 50501 and Hands Off were not organizers of June 9th. That was a different organization that we are actually distancing ourselves from completely, because what we are hearing is that they led protesters to ICE and then they disappeared. And so I'm actually in talks with the organizers trying to understand why they did that. But all of our protests have been incredibly peaceful. And I think it's going to be actually so silly when we see the National Guard on one side and then our friends and community on the other celebrating their right to protest. I even think that some of the people in the National Guard are just going to sit there and be like, why are we here right now?
I hear what you're saying. I think the mayor did say, he goes, I believe in Austin. I think we know how to peacefully protest. I don't think there's going to be any trouble on Saturday.
No.
So it may look.
And I think too, June 9th, if you look through the video footage on TikTok, on Instagram, I see a lot of peaceful protesting. And then I see cops driving into the middle of the protest. And then I see arrests start happening. I see pepper spray. And that's when I see things kind of unfold and divulge into what we saw. But I know these people. I have been protesting shoulder to shoulder with these people for over half a year now. These are not violent people. I would say the violence that we are seeing is from our education being stripped, is from Medicaid being cut. It is from watching our immigrant families being torn apart. Violence against a building is not violence. We are seeing systematic violence against not just our immigrant neighbors and family, but Americans as a whole. We're seeing just, oh, you're poor, your taxes are gonna go up. Oh, you want an education, you want a good education, you're gonna have to go to a private school. You know, we just saw the school vouchers pass, even though it had been voted down. Was it 3 different times? Or more. We are seeing violence enacted through policy, and then they're trying to act like a little graffiti on a building is violent. When you push someone into a corner over and over, and then you ask them to ask politely to be let out of that corner, that's just not how it's going to happen. If someone's holding my feet to the fire for a prolonged period of time, I'm going to do what it takes to get my feet out of that fire. And I think that that's what a lot of America feels like. Because again, It is not just Austin we're seeing these protests in. It is not just LA. We have protests in San Antonio. We have protests in New York. I think Detroit just saw an eruption of protests. I just watched a video of a single woman sit in front of an ICE car so that it couldn't leave. That sheer level of bravery is insane. But they want to focus on a little violence and the form of graffiti. I just cannot get down with that rhetoric.
Okay, so what are you all doing to try to keep things peaceful on Saturday?
Absolutely. So I do know that we have a group of organizers that have been doing de-escalation training. They will have very specific shirts on to let you know who they are. We are also going to let all attendees know in the beginning that if someone is trying to incite violence, what you do is you sit down and you point at the person so that our team can get to them and figure out what we need to do from there. As well as we have Austin medics. And then we do work with APD because this is a permitted protest that we will be having this 14th. So we do work alongside APD the best that we can to ensure the safety of our protesters, because that is our number one concern. We see that peaceful protests bring change. And we want to have our neighbors and our community feel safe being there and exercising their constitutionally protected rights. And so we do a lot of de-escalation training. We actually have one tomorrow. The organizers will be in another de-escalation meeting. And we just have our de-escalation group growing and growing. And then again, we will be telling people at the beginning what to do if anyone becomes violent near them.
Police chief talked quite a bit today about something she calls dialogue policing, where she's attempting to open up a dialogue with protest organizers. And she said that police did meet today, maybe with your friend.
Yes, so Sophia, yes.
Yes, and trying to spread the word about how we can work together, what we can do. Do you think that's a good step?
That's a tough question, because I'm not going to sit here and say that I support APD 100%, especially after how violently I was arrested and how violently other people are arrested. But again, the number one thing for me right now is the safety of my community that comes out to these protests. So I am absolutely willing to work with APD if it ensures the safety of my protesters. But what I would love to see APD do is some of their own training. Because again, I do not think that June 9th needed to blow up the way it did. I saw peaceful protesters in the streets, and that is it. And a little bit of graffiti. And the rock throwing, I would love for them to show videos of that, because I haven't seen a single video of a protester throwing rocks. And I was thinking about it this morning. Have you seen just free rocks downtown? I've never just seen a big rock I could just pick up and start throwing. Maybe I'm not actively looking for rocks, but especially it was the JJ Pickle building where it all went down. I just did an interview over there. I didn't see any rock damage. I didn't see any rocks that were easily accessible. So I really would love to see the footage of the rock throwing.
I hear what you're saying. We watched a lot of video, and I did see people spray painting the building.
Yes.
But I didn't see any rock throwing either, but not to say that it didn't happen.
Yes, but and especially to do a briefing, which they did not have to do. That police briefing is not in their job description. They chose to hold that briefing while the people were still in jail. I was let out around 4 a.m. that morning because, again, Class C Misdemeanor could have easily been a ticket, could have easily been, hey, just turn around. But no, it turned into a violent arrest where I was, not only my wrist was bent back, but I was tear gassed while in handcuffs, which has been illegal to use by APD since 2020.
That was DPS.
DPS, thank you. But tear gassed in handcuffs. And again, so what you and me are both stating is what we have seen is graffiti. Where is the violence in that? Why did we need 12 different violent arrests for a little bit of graffiti? I would love for APD to look into de-escalation training of their own. And again, talking about that briefing, to plaster our faces all over Austin and associate us with rock throwing is so detrimental to our futures. I have been sent my mugshot by hundreds upon hundreds of people. And I mean, if I was trying to go get a job? Oh, she's a rock thrower. And people now, especially nowadays, are so quick to believe the media and the police because they are supposed to be here to protect us. So of course, I understand why people would believe the police because that is their job, is to protect us. That's what's supposed to be their job. And people believe in the institution, which is beautiful, They're supposed to work for us to keep us safe. But that never happened. And so now this institution that's supposed to be trustworthy is now putting out slander, but people are still going to believe it because that is what they've been taught to do. And so even if you come up and show that my charges were not that, the police associated us with violence. And now forever, cannot be erased. That is on the internet forever. My name is now associated with violent acts that I was not even charged with. I think that is despicable.
What was your Class C misdemeanor charge?
Failure to obey a police officer's order, which was the man trying to tell me not to turn, which this could be, he's standing this way. This could be associated with turn right. This could be, and it was one officer and he wasn't even in the corner blocking. His motorcycle was like very close to the box. One cop, a lot going on. I'm driving slowly. It had looked like an open road. Even when they swarmed my car, I asked, what am I being arrested for? Because it was like 10 cops for me and my passenger. They handcuffed my passenger as well. But after a lot of back and forth, because again, she did nothing. She was just in my car. She as well got tear gassed. But a Class C, you don't even actually go to court. You go to like community court down on Barton Springs. And they had given me a piece of paper saying I had a court date 2 days after 9:30 a.m. And I get there, I'm not even in their system. I woke up early right after being out of jail. And they had printed out a piece of paper. Is it back? No, my boyfriend had moved it. They had printed out a piece of paper stating that I had a court date at 9:30. How can they print out a legal document that is false? I wasn't even in their system. It feels like they didn't know what they were doing, perhaps, or maybe they're just trying to mess with us. But having a briefing straight out of people are still in jail. They got let out 2 days ago in the early mornings. So they weren't even able to defend themselves for most of it. I was the only person out able to defend myself against that briefing that is not in their job description. They did not need to have that briefing.
You're sorry now, though.
Yes.
Well, with the other stuff still lingering.
Yes, with the other stuff still lingering, absolutely. But we've had massive numbers. I think our biggest protest, we saw 7,000 to 8,000 people. I think that was February 5th, which we saw millions of people nationwide come out. And we have 1,600, over 1,600 protests planned for June 14th, which we know is Trump's birthday. And we know that he has spent $45 million of taxpayer money to bring out a military parade. We have people who can't afford health care. We have education being stripped left and right, and yet we are willing to spend $45 million of the taxpayers' money for a parade for our president's birthday, who is a public servant? No. So I believe that we are going to see record numbers this coming protest because the people are done. They are not going quietly. And it's not just Austin. We've seen it nationwide. The people are not going to go quietly, and the government works for us, not the other way around.
Thank you for watching. Please hit the subscribe button and get the latest news by downloading the CBS Austin News app.